Can you come out black and then fade up?
Hey, welcome to the UpSet podcast. We're so happy that you tuned in on tonight's episode. We're talking about LGBTQ. Plus, we're talking about Black Music Month and Camp Meeting. Can you believe all that in one show? Well, it's coming right up right after this intro. All right, and we're back. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast. You know I'm never here alone, so I'm just gonna go ahead and bring in the crew right now. What's up, guys?
Never
Hello.
alone. Never alone.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, everybody. Okay, GP, that kind of freaked me out. I was like, wait, why am I like above his head?
Upset
I was on mute for a second.
That was pretty clever there. Pretty clever, GP. Yeah. I wish I had his technical skills. I do.
All about positioning. All about positioning.
Yeah. So happy Sunday, everybody. Hello to our live audience. We are live tonight, and we look forward to interacting with you. Thanks for tuning in. Go ahead and share this. If you're watching on Facebook, share the link with somebody from YouTube as well. Let them know we're talking about all kinds of things today. This is our June mashup. We're just trying to throw it all in. So we're looking forward to you guys engaging with us. But first, guys, a lot's been going on in the news, as always. The question is, where do we start? Because there's so much. Well, hello, Havis. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, Havis?
Stars.
What do we? I love this.
Yeah, one of the big headlines is, of course, the submersible that those 5 individuals died in.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
You know, I find out that it was totally avoidable. I saw a soundbite from the movie director. His last name is Cameron, or is it? Can't remember. Anyway, he was involved in, submersibles. He's also a movie director, but he, and along with other people, knew that this particular vessel was really not suited for what they used it for. And although the manufacturers of it, they beg to differ, but they said that the thing went down and it just imploded, and they had to have died instantly.
Right.
And it went down.
Yeah.
It's very sad. I feel bad for the families, but they were warned. They really were warned about, taking that thing down. But
if I'm correct, though, Charles, it had taken that trip before.
It did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then
I'm not sure if it went to the depth that it did, but one experienced naval guy said that they knew on Monday that they were in trouble because they lost communication, they lost comms, they lost.
It was like an hour, I think. I heard after they had went down.
Yeah, it wasn't long after. And so all this week I was thinking about, we're like, oh, could it possibly be, keeping the hope alive until Thursday, when they said, of course, the oxygen, would have run out. But just going back now and them finding the pieces, like the cone of the tail of it at the bottom. I was like, oh, wow. But like
there was like,
go ahead, Amy.
There was like a boy. I think he was like in his teens, or I don't know how old he was.
Yeah, he was there with his father.
Yeah. But they were saying that
Father's Day gift. He said, he wanted his son to be with him.
Yeah, and I think when I was watching the news the other day, is either his grandmother or someone that was close to him. I don't quote me on this, but saying that he was worried about going on because he didn't think it was safe, but he wanted to go with his dad, and then he ended up, so that's kind of sad,
Yeah. What an adventure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Aretha Dixon just made note of that, and we give our greetings to Patrick Graham, who's getting ready to preach in Bermuda, who sent his greetings to
Yeah.
us as
Hey,
well.
hey.
You know, I hope he doesn't
That's
upset the
funny.
people there. But yeah, that is that physics. I don't understand physics very well, but you don't really get the fact that the pressure of the deep when you go down into the ocean, that water
Mhm.
has pressure. You just don't
Right.
think about it. Water is just water. It's like air. You don't think of the power that air has until you find yourself caught in a tornado or a hurricane, and you begin to
Right.
realize these things. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much that we don't know about the ocean because of that fact too. Like
Mhm.
Mhm.
going that deep is dangerous. Mm.
It really
Wouldn't
is.
be me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was like, I have a little sense of adventure, but I'm not a risk taker when it comes to that kind of thing. Like I just
Mhm.
Yeah, the
Well,
most I do is snorkeling.
6,000.
did
I've
you all
I've never
notice
done that.
the admission to get on that small craft?
Yeah,
Yeah.
250,
Yeah,
quarter of a
it's
million dollars.
expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
quarter of a million
oh,
dollars. But,
um,
well, you
but
know, 6,000 pounds per square inch. That
yeah.
sounds like the
A lot of pressure.
tolerances on my office chair. So, but
It's a mess, I know. But on the other side of that, I
mm-mm.
mean, another thing that came up with that whole story is, and I have to say, a lot of the jokes and the other things that were coming up were before it was confirmed that they were deceased, but people were saying how insensitive people were being with some of the jokes surrounding this whole
Mhm.
Mhm.
thing. I mean, it was pretty brutal. I saw some of them, and
I do.
I um I have
A-
to.
A-
I have to.
Amy's trying to bait you into saying some.
I'm interested. I mean,
Don't, man, don't go Google them,
a
guys.
little interested.
How macabre.
Yeah,
Amy says that's so insensitive and cruel. you know.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I don't think.
but no.
But something else that was in the news that we haven't talked about, and I don't know if we've talked about it as a topic. Last week, the 1 year anniversary of the repeal of Roe v. Wade
Mm.
was noticed. Some
It's
people
been
celebrated, some people memorialized it. But the issue of abortion is one. Have we ever talked about it?
We talked about it.
Okay, yeah, I might have missed
Mhm.
that one, but
Yeah, we talked about it a little
I,
bit.
I don't allow myself to be squeezed. Like this false polemic of this false binary of are you pro-life or pro-choice? I'm pro both. I believe people should have a choice. I also believe in the sacredness and of sustaining life wherever you find it.
Right.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree with you.
and so it's time for us to have a broader discussion about the issue of abortion. Because even though our Republican friends are totally opposed against it, unless their girlfriend, of course, gets pregnant, and they don't want their wife to find out. Um,
Mhm.
it's something to.
Another story.
It is a discussion to have, a real
Right.
discussion to have.
Right. Yeah. And I think I remember when we had the discussion, it was one of those where we were all pro-choice, so we didn't really know where to go with it because we didn't have opposing
Mhm.
sides on the
Yeah,
panel.
then I must not have been there. Yeah, because
Yeah.
Probably weren't. Probably weren't. All right, guys. So with the amount of topics we have going on tonight,
yeah, here we go.
I think we may as well go ahead and just dive
Get into it.
get into
Mhm.
it. And to our viewers, come on, we need you to roll with us. Roll with us. We recognize that the month of June, I mean, a lot of months are packed with, observances and things. But the month of June, it was just like we were one after the other. It's like we only have 4 weeks. How can we get it all in? And we just decided we're going to talk about them all as much as we can. We do know that June is considered Pride Month. And so we don't we've talked about LGBTQ, how the church relates before. Um, but I know Tally had mentioned a few weeks ago something that happened at La Sierra University. Do you mind just recapping that shortly for those who
I
did?
mean, to be somewhat brief about it, at La Sierra University, they decided that they would hold an I am affirmed graduation ceremony for individuals who were a part of the orientation or who owned the orientation, the sexual and gender orientation that would fit within the framework of LGBTQIA plus. I mean, you got to get all of them in there now. And in doing that on that Sabbath, having this affirmation, Dr. Paul Mallory, who's the chair of the psychology department, sent out a flyer that announced that they were going to celebrate those graduates who identify as LGBT plus, LGBTQIA plus, and that people were, welcome to come to it. It created a firestorm of pushback because
Mhm.
people were saying, "How can you celebrate people who are quote living in sin unquote?" And that is a discussion worthy of having.
Right. Definitely. And I have to say, I went to look it up because I didn't hear about it that particular weekend. And I did find an article that was written by Advent Messenger,
Mhm.
and the author, um, his name, let me look his name real quick. His name is Andy Roman. Of course, like you alluded to, um, kind of talked about how he didn't feel that this was something that our Adventist institutions should be doing. And, of course, the comments were a whole nother, you know how we get.
Hmm.
And so, my knee jerk reaction, of course, when you first said, I was like, really? Like, we do that now? But when I read it, I said, you know what? Let me take off my, natural proclivities towards certain things, and let me look at this from another angle.
Hmm.
One, I noticed that this was an invitation coming from the director of the psychology department. Okay, that was my first thing. Why is this something that the director of the psychology department is spearheading? And my first thought, we talk about mental health a lot on here. We talk about um, things that people are going with that they don't verbalize. And my first thought was, obviously, this director is exposed to maybe information and things that we don't know. There could be people on the campus or in the community who have confided in this director, who are thinking about all kinds of things, and dealing with a lot of people. And maybe this was his response to some of the things, to trends he was seeing. This is me trying to play devil's advocate to try to understand what would prompt someone to do this. So I thought about that. Tried to think about that.
Hmm.
Then I thought about, we as a church, we're always asking, what can we do? What should we do? Our position in some cases has been to just not say anything, don't offend. Some are very outright in their opinions about the community, but in terms of evangelizing the community, we don't really hear much about that. So I said to myself, well, at least there was an invitation. I mean, if you want to draw people, I mean, you have to at least invite them into an environment where they feel they can learn. But I think the word affirmation is what made people feel like they were co-signing the lifestyle. So I don't know. What were you guys' initial thoughts when you heard it? I mean, is this just, I mean, is it a good try at trying to bridge that gap, or is it just, you know,
You,
off the mark?
I speak now wearing a couple of hats. One job that I held at the city of Philadelphia, I was the former executive director of the Philadelphia Commission on Human Relations, whose task it is to assure, at the point of law, equal access and opportunity to all classes of people, and to provide for advocacy for individual classes that have suffered discrimination, which included, and I did a lot of work with members of the LGBTQIA community, and I still have very, very close and dear friends who are LGBTQIA, and I pastored individuals who are, and I have members of my family. I mean, all of us do. We
Yeah.
may not want to acknowledge it, but we all do. s- the idea of wanting to affirm people for who they are, there's nothing worse than perceiving that you have no right to be what
Mm.
you are. The idea of wanting to affirm people is healthy. The idea of doing it as an institutional statement might not have been the wisest thing to do.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
You put people in the crosshairs, and then at that point,
Right.
but the larger question remains, and that is, what is God's posture on people who do not fit neatly into the binary box of male, female, as we perceive those two gender expressions to be?
Yeah.
Amy, you answer.
Me?
Amy said to Jude, "You will not throw me to the wolves."
No.
No, no, I'm only kidding. I mean, it is an extremely difficult answer. I mean, because
Right.
people,
It
Very.
you
is.
know, go ahead, Amy.
Um,
Ladies and gentlemen.
I I did look up that article as well when I was looking into it, and I found it quite interesting. And then I was looking up some other things on like why or what it actually means. Like they call it the lavender
Yeah.
graduation,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
and this article by HRC Foundation, they said the lavender graduation is an annual ceremony conducted by on numerous campuses. So I didn't actually know that this was happening. Like this is something new that I've just heard of. And apparently I wanted to know, like, is it happening at other schools as well? Like, is this like a new thing that La Sierra just decided they were going to do, or where did they even get this idea from? And then so apparently, like, it's to honor lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and ally students, to acknowledge their achievements and contributions to the university. They said it was created by Dr. Ronnie Sanlo, a Jewish lesbian who was denied the opportunity to attend the graduation of her biological children because of her sexual orientation.
Mm.
Um,
That's why.
it was through this experience that she came to understand the pain felt by her students, and I guess that's when they created it, and it started in 1995. So
Oh wow.
I my whole thing is like you said, it is a difficult thing to answer, and you never want to say the wrong thing.
Well,
But I do feel like, because La Sierra is a part of the Adventist community, it does make things a lot more complicated, because they decided to do something like that we don't
it's
really agree with.
it's
Sorry.
not confined. Well, and that's the question, though, Amy. Do we agree with it or not? I mean, there are people who do. The Potomac Conference released a statement about the same thing. I'll just read. Charles Tapp is the president of the Potomac Conference. Remember in the old days when we would call conferences that weren't regional conferences, we call them white conferences. Not anymore. Charles Tapp is the, some of the older folks from Potomac Conference went in the office and looked around and said, am I looking at the negative? I mean, okay, but back to the point. They released a statement about homosexuality and LGBTQ issues, and I quote from it. It says, "The LGBTQ plus community is a population that exists within the conference and the world. They are our members, our neighbors, our friends, and our family. They are our loved ones, and while we cannot agree with or endorse individual choices or lifestyles, we also cannot promote individual or political agendas as we have in the past. We will follow the teachings of Jesus Christ to ensure that we are demonstrating his love to everyone." And the question becomes, how did Jesus act toward people who were homosexual?
Same way he acted to
Does,
anybody else that was a sinner.
are there any statements
Now, I want you to notice what you
that
just said, Tasha. The same way he acted toward anybody else who is a sinner. Because what that does is it classifies a person who is homosexual as
Right.
a sinner.
That's true.
Now, and is that true? Is a homosexual person a sinner by virtue of their homosexuality? And I'm not asking anybody to answer. I'm saying
No,
these are the things to be discussed and clarified.
right.
Right.
Yeah, because I've heard that unless you act on it, like, people are even taught, like, it's okay, it's okay if you feel that way. Just don't do it and you're fine. I've heard that growing up. It doesn't come a sin until you act on it. And so I think even because someone, was having this discussion about, we always treat the homosexual lifestyle as a sexual sin. But I think you mentioned this too a couple of times, Tally. We make it about sex. But people who are homosexual have an attraction to a certain to the same gender and so it's not always just about sex. I mean, we always make it
right.
the dirty thing. So it's almost a process of, I feel like it's trying to put people in boxes. It's this classification. No one walks around. I don't walk around saying I'm homosexual. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to identify myself as that. But I'm
waiting for this clip to come out.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? Like
the Allegheny East Conference Communications Director confessed during a live.
But I think many of them do, though. Like, don't they? That's what they identify themselves as. Like,
everybody wants to be accepted for what they are, not what they pretend to be or have to pretend to be.
Right.
And that's where this issue comes out. And here, listen to these are the words. This is the only time Jesus ever addressed issues of gender identity. The only time that he ever addressed it. Matthew chapter 19, verse 10 through 12. And they're talking about gender and they're talking about sexuality. And Tasha, here's the deal. When you talk about homosexuality, it's about the sex. Whenever somebody says, it's not about the money, it's not about the money, it's not about the money, it's about the money. And when they say, it's not about the sex, it's not about the sex, it be about the sex. And here's the thing. Jesus said, because they were talking about marriage and so forth and how difficult certain things are. And the disciples said in verse 10 of chapter 19, it's good that a man not marry. Verse 11, Jesus said, all men cannot receive the saying, save they to whom it is given. It's talking about marriage. It's talking about sexuality, because the illustration that went before was about a guy with a woman who married a bunch of guys and all that. And then in verse 12, he says this, for there are some eunuchs. Eunuchs were, sexually ambiguous, many times effeminate men who were so born from their mother's womb. And there are some eunuchs who were made eunuchs of men. And there be eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. Now, it is not an absolutely comprehensive statement by no means, and it introduces a lot of ambiguity, but it tells you have to think about this thing. This is the only time Jesus addressed it. And what he did was he divided three characters. He said some people come in this world a certain way, some people are made this by men, and some people do this for themselves. And, what does that mean? And then add on that this. Jesus says, in the world that is to come, we neither marry, nor are we given in marriage. What does that mean? Thank you for joining us today on the UpSetters.
And I know we can't. And I saw Havis's question. Will he make a statement on behalf of in our conference? I can't say
not
that.
If they're smart.
I was gonna say I can't see one that is being drafted, because it's really hard to make a statement without it being misconstrued or misinterpreted. It's one of those areas that we've yet to find a way to say it in a way that is loving and yet upholds the Bible. It's like for some reason we can't find that happy marriage. And I think sometimes it's better to say nothing at all than to say the wrong thing and offend. But at the same time, I do believe there's certain times when it is important for us to speak up, because I feel that the attention that even looking at some of the comments of the article, I was like, why are we so aggressive? I mean, like, we come for the throat when it comes to this particular topic. Other things can happen in the church. People can kill, people can lie, steal, and people are like, oh, the love of God is. But when it comes to this community, it's like this is an abomination. How dare we? And it's like, where's that same energy with everything else? Why are we so like hateful, and we feel like our hate is justified when it comes to this particular community? That's the part that baffles me, I guess.
Well,
Let me
I
ask.
don't think we're fully living on principle. It's tough for us to do. But to mention, to go out on an extreme tangent, I came across an article that said Uganda's parliament passed a sweeping anti-gay bill in late March.
Yeah.
Have you learned about that? And I mean, it's very severe. I mean, if anyone is tagged as gay or homosexual, that they could be imprisoned and they could get the death penalty.
Yeah.
Now, here's the horrific part of this.
A little extreme.
The Ugandan conference president stood in support of this bill.
Yeah.
The Seventh-day Adventist Church in Uganda stood in support of this bill, along with I think it's the Ugandan Interreligious Council, which pushed for the law. I mean, what do we say to that? We are condoning the punishment and the taking of one's life because they are living a homosexual lifestyle.
Yeah.
Is that acceptable to us?
Yeah.
Not me.
Havis brought up a point answering the question I asked. We in terms of why we're so aggressive towards this community. He says it's because we classify sin based on our own personal likes or dislikes. So,
well, actually, and Havis, I'm close. It's actually more according to our proclivities. I mean, I'm easy on, if a guy commits adultery, I'm easy on him because when I go out in the middle of the summer and women out there walking around in dental floss, my head's on a swivel. And so I'm more sensitive to the fact that could be me. But because I'm not homosexual, the idea of me being caught sleeping with GP or Charles, it's not even a remote possibility. Unless like I'm real cold and we just need to conserve body heat, but there's no sexual attraction there. So it's easy for me to disparage somebody who has a proclivity that I don't have, that does not exist in me.
Right.
I am not a thief now. There was a day, but I'm not a thief now. But under certain circumstances, I know that I might steal, and so a thief is someone that I'm willing to go a little easy on. But the homosexual box is not something that I have to worry about checking because that's not my proclivity. You see.
Right. Yeah. And but that brings up the point though, Tally, that we need to be sensitive to others' proclivities. I mean, because when you look at the example of Christ, he showed compassion for all people, and he was sinless. So it's, what I mean. So I think sometimes we forget that side of things because it's so egregious to us. We treat people that way, and it's like, what happened to the love? What's going to draw them if the way we treat them is adverse to that?
Right. Well, as an institution, we need to be concerned about that. Individuals have their own individual spin on it. But, the thing I want to address here is the fact that going back to this situation in Uganda, the General Conference, according to the author, was completely silent on this issue of a union president supporting a local law that would bring death to homosexuals.
That's unusual. The General Conference is normally very bold and progressive in making statements about matters of human equity.
Yep. I mean, tell you.
Yep.
Yeah.
We got to ask ourselves. So let's bring it locally. Would we support a law like that? Would you, let's just say a conference president in the United States supported a law like that, stood with the seat of the state government in support and representative from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Would you agree with that? Would you stand for that?
What's that word that begins with an H and ends with two L's? No. I would be in front of whatever entity that exists with every gay friend that I know carrying a sign
Mm.
opposing that. I mean, the idea of condoning the death penalty for something like that is foolishness. And I wish I knew the Ugandan president, and I would tell him to his face that it's foolishness.
Yeah. I'm glad you said you gay friends because Tally, you have gay
Hmm.
friends.
Yeah. Oh,
You,
yeah.
Mhm.
how can you as a Seventh Day Adventist pastor be
Be
friends?
friendly.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
can be
Well,
friendly.
because a couple of them were my members.
Mhm.
That's one thing. And then let
Mhm.
me go further than that. A couple of them went to school and served with me in ministry.
there you go.
You want to, and so and that begs the question: if you knew, let's say a member of your church, let's give it to GP, and let's ruin his ordination. A member of your church confesses and says, "I am gay. I'm homosexual. Have been all my life, as far as I know, but I am not. I'm committed to not practicing it. But that is what I am. I am gay." Would you allow that person to be an officer in your church?
Whew.
GP. That's
Well, if they already had the office and they shared that with me, I would not sit them down right away. I would thank them for
Right
sharing.
away.
Listen. I would thank them for sharing, and I would probably want to have another conversation with them, but probably not. No, I wouldn't sit them down.
Look at that.
That's interesting, GP, because I had a conversation with a pastor in our conference on this topic, not recently, but the topic came up in conversation, and so I asked this particular pastor that you're okay with knowing that a member of your church is homosexual and a person who's holding an office. I said, so what do you do? Do you just let it go? Do you approach them? Do you tell them, upon knowledge of your, sexual orientation, you cannot hold an office? This particular pastor said, I just leave it alone. He said, I just leave it alone because he, and I'm not sure, he didn't unpack it, but he said I could run into some serious legal issues
yeah.
if I say to him that he can no longer hold an office in the church because of his sexual orientation. So where do pastors stand? Where do we stand as an institution on that issue?
I have another question for JP, for GP. Sorry. um, what about a woman who is pregnant out of marriage? Like, does that hold up the same? Would that hold up the same kind of level as someone who said, I wasn't practicing homosexuality, but I want to be a part of your church and I want to do things, like those two are kind of, I mean, with a woman that is like showing everything, that's like, oh,
It's
she's,
obvious she's been
it's
practicing.
very
Yeah,
obvious that she
yeah.
has done, what she's done.
There should not be categories
Hmm.
for public versus private sin, but we do have those things at the top of our list that if you fall in that category, the manual says we advise that you be censored or be disciplined. So is it loving? Is it out of? So I mean, I would definitely call my ministerial director. I would call the conference attorney before I do anything. I would pray. These are tough
That's
questions.
wisdom. That's
Yeah.
wisdom.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, but Amy, there's a difference, and I think Mary Wright put something there too. I'll come back to that in a minute. But there is a difference. The difference is if a woman gets pregnant out of wedlock, her situation is a matter of timing and impropriety.
Mm.
Homosexuality is considered to never be acceptable in the church's eyes. In other words, woman, she got pregnant before she was married. If she had waited until after she was married, it would be fine. But homosexuality, there's never room to accept that in the minds of certain people. So the nature of the condemnation is completely different. The other thing is, yes, there are differences in sin. I mean, and I'm not saying that. God said that. That's why God said, if a person does this sin, he has to bring a grain offering. If he does this sin, he has to bring an ox. If he does this sin, he has to be put out of the camp, or maybe even stoned, because God even evaluates differently. Because sin is evaluated not simply on what you do, but the impact that it has on the community around you.
Mhm.
And so there are differences, and we should be mindful of that. But the issue here is,
So should
do
we
you? Hmm?
should we start you know, rating people on how they sin? I'm
Well,
just throwing out a
yeah,
question.
but we do. I mean,
Oh,
we
yeah, we
do.
do that. We do
Yeah.
We
that.
do that. I mean,
Yeah.
I
We have
mean,
Yes,
some
and,
yeah.
specialists at that.
we do that. I mean, just like the law rates people on how they commit a crime. I mean, we do.
Mhm.
But the issue here is a homosexual, quote, sinning by virtue of what their nature is? And
Mhm.
we have not settled that. We have not
Mhm.
addressed that. And that's the thing that we have to look at. If it is a person by virtue of their perceived nature uh in sin, and that's what we have to take a look at.
Right. And I know we do have like two other topics we're going to get to. I
Mhm.
do want to look at some of the comments in the chat though,
Ah.
because Anthony Daniels brings up something as we talk about homosexuality as a sin, because there's some people, mostly there's some people who don't believe homosexuality is a sin. So we're identifying it as a sin, but there are those who don't even think it's a sin. Um, and he's asking the question, well, if they don't think it's a sin, then would they feel the need to ask for repentance? But I think with that comes some teaching, and that's what I don't understand. Like, we're so adverse to the community about what they shouldn't be doing, but we don't provide an environment where we can teach them other. We're so hateful in our conversation about the topic that there never isn't a window for us to really show where we're coming from, because we don't do it in a loving manner. We lead with the condemnation,
Mhm.
thinking that that's going to make them want to turn around and hear the truth, when actually it pushes them further into their lifestyle, because they already feel in some cases, societal pressure and a lack of acceptance. They come to the church for some type of guidance and acceptance of, this is where I am. They confide in someone, and then they're judged in the church as well, the people that they want to teach them and lead them. And so it's like, how can we be a place where people learn the truth, understand it as a sin, learn how they can overcome it, if we don't provide an environment for them to do that? And I saw Carrie had a comment too. Is there room in love for shaming? Because some of us, take great pride in making sure, we expose people, or we talk very
Well,
negatively. Go ahead.
yeah, I think that the other thing that we are challenged with is that we feel that homosexuality is a choice, a behavioral choice, a mental, I choose to be this way.
Right.
Yeah.
Then there are others who say, no, I don't choose to be this way. It is the way I am. And many of them suffer in confusion because of how they feel. Now, I had an interesting discussion with a Seventh-day Adventist physician friend of mine on this topic about a person feeling biologically that they are forced to succumb to their biological, what they determine as a biological, feeling or status. And surprisingly, this physician said there is something to that, that a person is born and they, whether they're male or female, but do not follow the male or female behavior pattern. And it could be influenced or affected by a biological imbalance. Now, we're not going to discuss whether that's true or not, but I thought that was an interesting response coming from a physician who I thought, and in fact, I came from the angle that, well, there's no, you're born male, you're born female. I mean, what? I mean, look at the organs and hey, got it, right?
Mhm.
But he said it was not that simple. That there are people who are struggling with a biological situation, not knowing how to handle it. So
The
I just
the
thought I'd
the,
throw that
the
angle.
I in LGBTQI stands for intersexed. we know that there are people who are born with ambiguous sexual organs
Mhm.
where they may have the vestigial male organs and vestigial female organs. And sometimes doctors make a choice on behalf of that child. We know that. We
Mhm.
know that there are people who are born where their hormones are out of balance. We see these things. And then there are those where, gender is more based in where your head is than just your body. So we know that there are these ambiguities and these complexities and nuances of both gender expression, and then there is the complexities of sexual desire and intimacy needs. We are complex creatures
Right.
for
Mhm.
sure, and so
Mhm.
sometimes we're all over the place, and we recognize that. The question becomes, how do we address people? As, for example, if let's say two people decide to live together, they're the same sex, and they're not sexually involved with each other, but they are
Right.
living together as the same sex. What do
Right.
we do with that? I mean, and
Well,
sometimes we
some
just have
people
to leave
perceive
things
that as
alone. Yeah.
homosexuality,
Yeah, that's not. I mean,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but
yeah,
they
it's not
perceive it.
sexual,
Roommate.
but it's still, yeah, it's still
Right.
something drawing them
And
together.
such would be the case with two women living together,
And we see that quite
housemate,
a bit. Uh-huh.
sharing a living
Sharing
space.
places. We have to blame the Holy Ghost for this because the first non-Jewish convert to the church was a man of sexually ambiguous orientation, a black uh, seemingly sexually ambiguous man from Ethiopia in service to the Queen of Ethiopia.
Mhm.
Philip runs up to the cart and looks in and says, "Oh my Lord, it's a black gay guy." And the Holy Spirit says, "Give him a Bible study." And Philip said, "We don't do that with these people," but he did anyhow. And
Mhm.
this man became the beginning of the Christian church outside of Judaism, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and
Mm.
sisters.
Mm, mm,
Now, why did the Holy Ghost do something like that? You know,
mm,
if
mm.
he wanted to keep it straight,
Keep
I'm
it.
done.
Well, all
Well,
right. I know. We have a lot to talk about. But I think there's really no way to cap this particular topic. But I just want us to think about what our role as Christians are. I mean, are we supposed to show love to everyone, or just the ones who do the sins that we can relate to, or are we to treat everyone with compassion with the intent of drawing us all um, closer to Christ, or are we there to sit in a seat of judgment? Just some things to think about as we.
I think as Christ-centered people, as people who believe in the sanctity of human beings, we need to ask ourselves, do we really love people?
Yeah.
Is it conditional? Do we really love people? And if we do, we will do those things to help them, to support them, to give them shelter, to give them,
Mm.
things that they need. We will not discriminate against them. They are part of God's creation. And so we need to ask ourselves, do we harbor the love for God's creation?
Mm. And Anthony Daniels asked the question, they will know that we are Christians by our selective love.
Mercy.
Well said.
Mercy.
Oh,
Mercy.
by the way, Anthony, the B in LGBTQIA plus is bisexual.
I
Mhm.
think he once explained that, but we're not going to go into that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? In terms of, because that raises another. I think I know where he was trying to go with that, but we're gonna pick that one up. All right, guys. So let's go to maybe a little lighter topic.
Yeah. Price of tea in China.
So June is also known as, well, actually officially, it's known as African American Music Appreciation Month, formerly known as National Black
Motown. No,
Music Month. And for those who did not know it was Black Music Month, it was actually created by President Jimmy Carter in 1979. So it's meant to celebrate African American musical influences
Right.
that are
They
pretty much,
they ain't closing no banks and post offices. Okay? You
yeah, it's a
forget that.
whole month long to celebrate. Yeah, but and we know black inspired music is seen through every style of music known to man. I mean, let's start with sacred music. what are some of those gospel greats you remember hearing,
Oh,
or Christian greats?
Mahalia.
There are a
Yeah.
lot of them. There are just tons. There are tons of them.
Too many to
Um,
name.
Yes, that's right. It's-
Oh, thick tongue James Cleveland. Lord have mercy.
yeah, Shirley
Yeah.
and there's so many. The list goes on. Let's hear from our watching audience. What are some of your favorite gospel or Christian or sacred musicians? Doesn't have to be gospel. Doesn't necessarily have to be gospel.
let's not forget the secular.
Tremaine Hawkins. Oh yeah, we're gonna get there. We're gonna start off sacred, Charles. Let's
Oh,
start.
Tremaine. Let me tell you, Tremaine. But I had the opportunity of working with her in Washington D.C. We were covering an event. In fact, it was at I believe it was at DuPont. Pastor Pearson did a series there, and Tremaine Hawkins was a guest speaker and guest singer rather. And I had the opportunity to work with her, and her talent is just outstanding. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
always loved Tremaine Hawkins, but to see her perform in person, it was just amazing. You know,
Yeah.
you knew the spirit within this woman. She had an amazing voice.
Yeah. So since then we've seen Andre Crouch. I hear that
Oh
name
yeah,
often.
Andre
Yes.
Crouch.
The
And
wine.
did we change subjects? We did change subjects. Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
No, Tally. These are all the homosexual people that we.
Oh, don't go down, Pally.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, Tally's on the list.
I spent a couple of years in gospel
You know what?
music.
I have not.
Oh, let's hear some. Let's hear some. I'm ready.
The group that I was in was nominated for a Stellar Award, and that year we lost to I Lift My Hands in the Sanctuary.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
We were,
Oh,
Pretty good song too. So.
Yeah.
And then we hear Donnie McClurkin.
oh yeah.
thank you, Grissom. Appreciate it. You know.
Whitney Houston pre-crack.
Listen, I'm not.
That's-
Havis is being bad.
Who said that? Daniels or Havis? Oh,
TC
okay.
and BB.
Blend rights. Yeah.
The Blend Rights.
A few
Yeah,
years
The Blend Rights were really ahead of their time.
Yeah,
They were.
we had them at camp meetings a few
Yeah.
years back.
You know,
Mhm.
I remember in 1974 I went to Oakwood.
Ooh,
That's right,
Jonathan
Amy.
Reynolds.
Yeah, Amy. Back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, I went to Oakwood, and I remember, just a poor kid from North Philly, Charles. The Aeolians took the choir stand and they sang that majestic introit, peace be to you and grace from him.
Mhm.
And I had never heard anything like that. I literally began to cry and walked outside of the worship and called my
I
mother
remember
and
you sharing
said,
that story before.
I need to come home because I'm not good enough to be with these people.
Wow.
Unbelievable music that this
Yeah.
church
Yeah.
has created and shared,
Yeah. Yeah.
But even
John
in all of
Tyler.
our churches, it is not welcomed.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Even in some of our Black churches, it's some types of music are not acceptable. I mean, I used to head a group many years ago, and you remember the Chapeliers, right?
Chapeliers, yeah.
Right. So we did some
They were
numbers
excellent.
that had percussion, in it. So we had bongos and congas.
I
And
remember.
we were told by one pastor that no, so we don't play
Don't
those
do
in the
that here.
sanctuary. I'm like, really? That's the song, the percussion is.
Yeah, we have
But
this thing. If it feels good, it must not be holy.
there's some very conservative churches that do not care for gospel music in
Yeah.
their sanctuary. So
Well, that's that Eurocentric
yes,
lie that they have subscribed
Exactly.
to, that certain instruments are holier, certain sounds are holier, and certain chords are demonic and you should
Yeah.
stay away from.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of unpacking and rewiring that must be done to some of our people who
That's
fall
right.
into that sunken
That's
place.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Well, you heard about the controversy from camp meeting over at Southwest, I believe it was.
Yeah,
Yeah. You heard
No,
about it,
what was
GP?
that?
yeah.
Was it?
What's the guy's name? The choir director.
Ricky Dillard.
Was it?
Yeah.
Ricky Dillard, yeah, was brought in by Buddy Bird, and I mean, and they were dancing around. It was like Soul Train up there on that stage, and the
That sounds
folks
fun.
are having a pink fit. You know,
We got
oh, committed.
committed.
You got to
We
get
got to
committed,
get committed.
and the bass in Committed is stunning,
Mm.
stunning. That guy, you know, he's sanctified.
Who is that person?
I
I
don't know.
think his name is Gaston Pierre.
Mhm.
My twin brother back there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, anything that's, you know, out of order. I mean, that went Adventist viral. He created a whole video. It's terrible that people are literally mudslinging on their preferences and things that they don't like. So this guy makes a lot of money on his profile YouTube page, blasting folks who are corrupted and bowing down to the devil. And he has a large following, and he needs to be stopped. Needs to be stopped.
You know, before the internet, when I was doing radio ministry, we had a contemporary radio program called The New Experience, and I was able to get that show on WRTI, which was Temple University Jazz Station.
Jazz station, yeah.
So I'm still attending North Philadelphia Church. So one or two members came to me one Sabbath and they said, Brother Williams, we were listening to your program, and you know, that music you play, you know, that is not Adventist, you know, music. This is not. I said, oh, okay. So you scanned the dial to find the jazz station that I put this on. Now to criticize me on the music. Well, the intent of the show was to not be on a religious station. We signed a lot of contracts on non-religious stations for purpose because it was radio ministry. Okay. And we got a lot of secular stations that took the show on. Okay. We were on, you remember WFIL? Bill?
I do.
Yeah. Number one rock station in Philadelphia. We had a 7 a.m. slot on Sunday morning on that station purposely. There are plenty of gospel stations around that we could have put the program on, but it was designed to reach out to people that, you know, don't have a religious or a Christ-centered. So, but I was chastised by my own members. Said, you know, well, if they come to this church, they won't hear the music you play. I said, oh, and I said that's a shame, but it was ministry. It wasn't designed for you. But we're locked into this certain mindset about Black gospel music.
Or Black music, period. Even going outside of gospel. I would love to believe, and I know there are some people who strictly listen to Christian and gospel music, and I think that's wonderful. But there are others who do like jazz and some other secular artists. I mean, they use discretion in who they listen to. I mean,
some don't, but
some don't. But you know, because you have things like folk music, the blues. I mean,
country and western,
Yep.
reggae.
Yeah.
It's reggae.
R&B. I mean,
what kind of music, Amy, did you say?
I didn't say anything.
She said something. I saw you. She said
mumble rap.
I'm just I'm surprised he brought up reggae because, you know, that's Caribbean stuff right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Everybody appreciates
Where you wind up your bumsy.
The Marley,
I mean,
Junior and Junior.
I'm not like a big reggae fan, but there's some stuff in there that's
absolutely,
you know, that I think
absolutely,
kind of nice.
Absolutely.
But I mean, go ahead, Tally.
The Song of Solomon does not have the word God in it. It's about two people chasing each other around the garden, trying to figure out how to make, you know, but you know, the Bible speaks of whatsoever things are beautiful, whatsoever things are good, you know, think on those things that, you know, we're not confined to any one particular type of music. And, you know, I guarantee you, you know, after they say, you know, I now pronounce you man and wife, you go to the hotel suite, you don't go to the honeymoon suite and put on "Nearer, My God, to Thee."
Right.
You know, it's,
I mean,
it's
very white.
Maybe some do. You know, you never know. You don't know.
to everything there is a season. You know.
You know, there's one artist. You know, growing up, even before I was an Adventist, you know, we had a lot of Motown records. One of the artists that even today, when you hear his music, and you hear the lyrics, and that is Marvin Gaye.
Yeah.
When you hear that song, What's Going On,
Mm-hmm.
it was as if he wrote it yesterday.
Yeah.
Because he talked about social issues in his songs.
Right.
And
Right.
he talked about healing. Remember that one, Charles?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We know
okay.
about the healing. Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Wait, say that
yeah.
again. I
No,
missed that
no,
one.
No.
Look it up. Google it.
There's a young man named London
put in
something.
Put in
Yeah.
Google Marvin Gaye, healing, and trust
I'm
me.
kidding. I know.
She
What
knows.
you're talking about. I know.
I saw the glint in her
Thank you,
eye.
Tracy. Tell him to stop it, right? Stop it, right? Otherwise we get in trouble. But I saw a point from Orwell. I wanted to, we talked about,
Dr.
people-
Brissett.
Yeah, we don't really teach the history of Black church music. A lot of times we think that if we just do the music, people will get it or they'll understand, and that's not always the case. But a lot of people, if they had knowledge of the background and where a lot of it came from, they may have a better appreciation of it. And I think we're lacking in that part. Good point.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Tiffany asked. So, Tiffany, you may have missed
Oh,
Amy.
Hello.
Amy, this is Amy.
I'm a fill-in. I'm not new. A new host.
This
I'm
is Amy's
just
third time joining us. She actually works in the communication department. She's a communication and media specialist. We're happy to have her join our team, and so she is always willing to fill in when whenever our co-host can't make it. So we're happy to have.
So let's welcome Amy.
Amy, welcome. Is her name?
so funny.
No.
Did you run into a little problem when the teacher was calling roll in the classroom?
No.
Like Jones, Leroy, welcome Amy.
I mean, it only happened when I was at Southern. But that was like a big mistake. They accidentally put my last name twice on the roster. And then so the teacher came up to me and was like, "Is your name welcome?" And I was like,
You should have said yes. Welcome, ever welcome. Happy Sabbath day.
So for a while, people were calling me welcome, and I was like, okay. But that was like the only time. Everybody just it was fine.
After they get over the initial,
yeah,
it was welcome there. Yeah. And it's funny, guys. Just to get back to the music very quickly, because I realize it's almost 7:00. Music is another area, that we use as a judgment. I feel like we really find
we're peculiar people.
Find a way to create division and judgment.
You have to remember, though, people tend to act according to how they believe, and they tend to believe based on what they're taught to think about. The central doctrine of Adventism is judgment.
Yep.
And we are prone towards it. And so, that's our misunderstanding of judgment has caused us to go in some real obtuse ways with our theology. The picture of our God is that he waits until 2:00 at night and he starts looking over stuff so he can figure out how to convict us and then evict us.
No, I mean, and I know I mentioned this before, and I'll wrap up, but I remember at Oakland, I know this happened other places all the time, and not saying there's no legitimacy to it, but I remember having those AYs where people were talking about playing the records backwards and hearing all these like demon voices. I mean, it had people, and people were going back to the dorms. I mean, the trash cans were full of CDs and DVDs.
Really?
Everybody just felt like
I used to get most of my records from the trash can. after a good 10 effort,
they would
get some good records.
Play even gospel songs that people love, play them backwards, and you hear, I got out, like you hear like these weird words. And
if you play a vinyl backwards, you're definitely going to hear weird voices. Okay,
right?
You know why? Because it wasn't designed
to play backwards.
So anyway, I'm just
people are always looking for something.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like,
but no, celebrate.
I think it goes down to education. You may have a preference for a certain type of music, but before being judgmental, understand the origins of that music.
Right.
And sometimes we judge the singers who sing music that we don't like. We have now decided
Yeah.
that they are, less than
Demon
righteous.
children. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to educate ourselves on it.
Yeah, and tolerance. I think we need a little bit more tolerance, a little bit more compassion all around as it relates to various subjects.
Yeah.
All right, so I know we're at the 7:00 hour, but we got to talk a little bit about camp meeting one because our camp meeting is coming up this weekend.
Woo, woo.
Yeah, we're excited. We'll start Friday night with our education program, and then Sabbath we'll have a full day. There's no early morning service. I just want to kind of throw out some of the questions
Oh,
I've been
wow.
getting. There's no early morning service. We're going to start with Sabbath school at 9:15.
Right.
So
That was a great idea to change that. Yeah. Last year, I think there were 3 people in the pavilion.
Oh, wow.
let's see
Wait, how early did it start?
8 o'clock.
7:30?
Yeah, I think
8
8
o'clock.
o'clock was like the official start time.
Oh
But
my.
We have some saints doing the regular 10-day meeting. I mean, they're out there at 6:30.
right.
They
So
out
when
there,
we're there the 10 days, it works because people are already on campus and they show up. But when they're coming for the weekend, it didn't translate well. So on Sabbath, we have Sabbath school. Looking forward to my friend Elder Dwayne Esmond, who will be presenting the study for Sabbath. So make sure if you're not present, that you check it out online. Then we transition right into our worship service at 11 o'clock. So in the pavilion, we have James Doggett Sr. coming from Patmos Chapel. He'll be delivering the message under the pavilion. But we also have programs for the youth and young adults. They'll be happening in the gym. And we have Pastor Damon Hendrickson from Bermuda, who will be ministering to the youth and young adults in the gym. So we have 2 services going on. And good news, those who are not going to be here, we will be streaming both of those services. So you'll be able to select either one, watch one live, come back and watch the other later. We're excited about that. And then, go ahead, Charles. You want to say something?
I was going to say, the question was asked, why is camp meeting on the weekend? Only on the weekend. I mean, there's a reason why we don't have a full 10-day camp meeting.
Only one weekend, she was saying, Charles.
Only one weekend.
Only one week.
Only one weekend, yeah.
Oh, the little heart that, covered that word in my looking at my phone here. Anyway, Latasha, you want to explain why we're not?
Well, from logistically, it's that gap in between having the two logistically for all the people that are involved, and it doesn't really work well to have the isolated weekends, and plus there's a lot going on the campus right now. Those who've heard the reason we're not having 10 days, we may as well throw that out there, is because the dormitories are being renovated. That's something we'll have an update for that during the education program on Friday night. We've been able to walk through those gutted dorms, and let me tell you,
they gutted them.
It's a lot.
We're about to see some structures. Well, inside, on the outside, it'll look the same. Inside, it'll be transformed. Yeah, so we're excited about that because it's not just for our students. I was talking with Adrian Rose, the vice principal, this week. It's not just for the students, but remember, we use this during camp meetings. So those of you who stay in the dorms during camp meeting, you're going to have some nice new digs during the summer. So we're excited about that. So we're making a sacrifice this year so that we can reap the benefits for our students and future inhabitants later on. But I did want to get back to after the divine worship, the Pathfinders are going to be here this year. So they're going to be camping out starting Thursday. They're going to be doing a parade after the service around 3 o'clock. So we all know what that's like, kind of get around the edges and they come marching through and we cheer them on.
Is there going to be the drum competition as well? No.
Yeah, that'll be that night, sunset. But before that, of course, we had ordination and somebody in one of these boxes around here.
Yeah, I think somebody is part of our team here.
There's a supernal glow around that person.
Yeah.
We're excited for you, GP. I mean, it's great. We're really
exciting milestone. You only get ordained once, right?
That is true.
Yeah,
That's true.
We're in full support.
But what if you left the church and then came back? Could you get ordained?
Leave ordained?
You
just
I still have my credentials. Unless they get stripped of
if
me.
they take them, yeah. I left the denominational employ for almost 20 years.
Oh.
You know,
Right.
so
Are you still ordained? No, it's fine.
I better check it.
No, but also I did want to go back to after service the box lunches. Last year, those box lunches were such a hit. I had so many people asking, "Are you
Really?
guys going to do those box lunches?"
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I'm
So
surprised.
they are doing them again free. So first come, first serve. There's a limited amount.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, those
so-
box lunches are like boxes of candy.
and they put a lot in there. It's not just a little one sandwich and chips and water. I mean, there's enough to even snack on while you wait for ordination.
Okay.
So that will be distributed CC1, which is also the CAF during camp meetings. So you can get that around 1 p.m. or right after the worship service. So
That's
check that
excellent.
out. Yeah, yeah.
And then after ordination is a Kirk Franklin concert.
Oh no concerts.
No,
Concerts
no,
in the
we don't.
evening. We're gonna
You usually do concerts.
sometimes we do concerts. Usually it's
Yeah,
one of more of the 10 days, like a
for the
grand
10-day. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's called the presidential. It's called presidential concert.
Mm.
Thank you, Anna.
Congratulations. Yes. Oops, Tally live. Oh, there's still time, Tally. I can talk to Dr. Robert.
Oh yeah, I would love
Oh,
to.
my
see
singing
that.
days are way over, way over.
Um,
Although now, I mean, Orville Brissett and I are part of a
Yes.
5-minister group here in the city,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
we are headlining the city's July the 4th
Are you?
concert. Yeah,
Nice.
Yay! And they're great.
Wow.
That's big.
They're
yeah.
great.
So
That's
If you haven't
big.
heard them, yeah.
What's the
What?
name of the group?
it's called Generations because, well, really because I'm old. I mean, the group spans several generations. We had somebody just out of their 20s, just out of their
Mm.
30s. Brissett just out of his 40s. Alan Waller, who's just at the end of his 50s, and I'm in my 60s, and so
Yeah,
know,
they're great.
you know.
What do you sing? Are you a tenor or
I'm actually a tenor. I
bass?
mean, but I'm
Ah.
but I've fallen off of it. An octave. I've lost an octave and a half over the last couple of years. But
Really?
yeah.
Okay.
But if you catch me at the right time and hurt me, I can hit some of those notes. I can
I
spit.
I
don't
was
think
going
you
to
want to do
suggest there
that.
wait to get that octave back, but
Yeah, yeah,
Oh.
I'm telling you.
Oh, and I do want to mention because people always want to know for the kids. There is for the kids ages 2 through I believe it's 10. Don't quote me, it's on the website. That you can check them in for Sabbath school. I think it starts at 9:30, and then after that, they have to be picked up, and there will be church in the gym. So it starts off at the church, the Sabbath school, and then they will transition to the gym. So there'll be something for all ages in the morning. I just want to make sure people who want to know what am I going to do with my kids. But you can't just drop them off if they're younger, underage. You have to sign them in and sign them out. We don't want to lose anybody during this one day. And there was something somebody asked me, which I thought was really cool. And Havis, you may know her. About this is their first time coming to camp meeting. And so they were asking me, do you have any tips for a first timer? So I was like, oh, I don't know. So I wanted to ask our audience real quick, and even you guys, like, if this was somebody's first time coming to an AC camp meeting.
My first time.
It's your first time too, Amy. That's right.
Yeah.
What would you tell them?
get
Bring a fan.
case of
Do you
awe.
have AC yet? No. Well, we do in the church and in the gym, but not under the pavilion.
insect repellent.
Yeah.
Bring fans, maybe. I
Fans,
don't know.
comfortable
Water.
shoes. Bring some water, bring a snack. Like some people brought their food, even though we gave out the box lunches, some people still brought their full meals and laid
Yeah.
out. Bring a blanket,
Sure.
table, chair. The grounds are just yours to spread out and enjoy.
You know, and look, you've been an Adventist all your life, Amy, have you?
I have.
Yeah. My first camp meeting was in '74, and I had only joined the church in '72. Camp meeting is a place where God can operate in ways that are unusual. My life changed my first camp meeting.
Mm.
I mean, that's where I received the call to ministry.
Wow.
at that first camp meeting in '74, and so
Mm.
Powerful.
I mean,
See,
so
My first camp meeting was life changing too. I got assigned to cleaning the bathrooms.
are you were part of the Honey Dipper crew?
Yeah.
Too special.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man, yeah, that'll
Okay.
two completely different experiences.
Oh, good. We have some
Very
great
much.
things coming in here. Tiffany saying bring bug repellent. Someone mentioned that. A battery operated fan. Those are very popular. A towel and a water bottle. Great suggestions. Michelle says bring Vicks.
Oh, why?
Because you might need a quarterback,
Oh, Lord.
Michael
Great
Vick.
suggestion.
Only
Wear heels, lady.
Don't wear heels.
I think you can wear heels. You just have to bring your flats with you. Like
It's
wear it
like
to
somebody,
No,
well, you
this-
can
then
wear
take
them
them off.
in the pavilion because it's a concrete, but
it's
going out
like
on
somebody
the
said about one
journey
camp
to the
meeting.
parking lot. Yeah.
When it comes to clothing, it said they came in halter tops, heels, fishnet stockings, and then the women came in.
You know what, Telly? What are we gonna do with you? Here's another tip. Dress prepared for seriously hot weather and sit near the edges of the pavilion. It's cooler. So that's a good little tip.
Nice, nice.
Usher's
That
gonna
was
be like, no, we need you to move in. Like, no, it's cooler. So
that was an anti-Negro statement right there. Get away from the black people, she just said.
Oh, okay. Tiffany said after attending her first 10-day camp meeting, she made the decision to attend PFA because it's right there
Nice.
on the
Wow,
ground. So
that's wonderful. Oh wow. I did check the weather though. I think it's gonna be hot, but at least it's gonna be overcast. So
so
we
that
should
sun and
It won't
be
be stinking
kind of
hot.
okay, you know.
yeah, hopefully
And
we'll
that the heat helps too because you realize I got to go to heaven.
this is not it. This is
Yeah,
can't be
'cause
here no longer.
this heat, no, it's just I can't take the heat.
yeah, bring an umbrella.
Umbrella, yeah.
If it's just a shield or it could
It might
rain.
rain.
Something
Mhm.
about camp meeting, it seems to sneak in there even when the weather doesn't call for it sometimes. Great
Those are
tips.
great tips. I'm gonna write them down.
And before Tally, I mean, you were on a camp meeting tour. You weren't able to join us for a little bit. How was your experience of the various camp meetings you visited?
Southwest was extraordinary. I give them all the credit in the world. I'd written a play a few years ago called Catching Fire, and they staged that play in the afternoon.
Did they?
They were
South Central.
stunningly good.
South
Beg
Central.
pardon?
I think you
Central
said
States?
Southwest, but I think you meant Central States. I'm sorry.
Central States. Yeah.
Yeah.
Elder Roger Bernard. The team. They have a great team, but they were stunningly good during the play, and I mean, and it was a very warm welcome. I really appreciate it. South Central, of course, is what it is. It's situated there at Oakwood, and they decided instead of doing sermons that they would have TED Talks in the midday, and then workshops in the afternoon. And so I did a couple of TED Talks and workshops, and I mean, it was a great time. It was good to go around. This is the last time I'm going to do that because because I'm not young anymore, and that I'm still recovering.
Yeah, but I
As
mean,
young as you feel.
Well, the people are asking for our pavilion to become modified so that we can have air conditioning.
listen, I keep seeing this debate even online, and some people are like, "Listen, if it's AC, it's not camp meeting." Some people are like, "We don't care what it used to be, but we want our AC." So,
Well,
Well, I think it's time to take a poll then,
quiet as it's kept. Originally, the original architectural plans for that pavilion was that it was to be enclosed. That, of course, didn't happen.
that was supposed to be phase 2, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's how many years later?
I
Right.
guess it's still
50
possible
years
then.
later.
Yeah, it's still possible.
Yeah, I feel like at this point, though, if we were going to do that, it needs to be a whole nother structure. Like to add that on,
Just
there.
tear it down.
lipstick on a pig type of thing.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
Tell us how you really feel, Tasha.
It's
Wow.
not the newest because I mean it's held up
We're gonna
well.
just change the name to the Pigvilion.
Wow. Well,
But no,
I'm
the time will come. The time will
well.
come.
Go to the pig for service.
The time is now. The time is now.
Yes, the time. We thank you, DP.
Now is the
throwing in
time.
our now is the time. is our theme this year. And now is the time for you to join us this weekend. We want to see you. And we will have the UpSet gear, some of the UpSet gear for you to purchase after sunset on Saturday night during the drum corps competition. We're looking forward to that. So you'll see us set up somewhere on the side of the pavilion if you want to get some of the. But if you want to pre-order, like you're not going to be there late, you want to pre-order and pay and just have your thing ready to pick up before you leave, you have to do that on the website. And you can do that at visitac.org/upset. You'll see the store there. You should see the option to prepay. So your things will be ready. You don't have to pay for shipping. So take advantage of that. We look forward to seeing you at Camp Meeting. All right, guys. Well, we managed to do it. We went a little bit over time, but we talked about LGBTQ community. We talked about Black history. I mean, I want to say Black history, Black Music Month, and we talked about Camp Meeting. We got it all in. Thank you guys for hanging in there for our June mashup. We will be back next week. We probably will do our post camp meeting show like we did last year. That was kind of cool. We may try to do it live. So
that's nice.
Stay Dally clapping. But thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for all the great commentary and for the tips for first timers. Those are great. And we'll see you back here next week, same time, same place, because if it's Sunday,
it's the day after Saturday.
It's the UpSet podcast.
Thanks, Amy. See, I know I can always count at least one person.
That's because she works in your department.
Oh,
you understand the assignment. But anyway, everyone have a great week.
Peace.
All right, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye.
bye.
Bye now.